Saturday afternoon, June 29th, show number 142. Welcome to another edition of Soul Tree Radio in the Raw. I'm your host, Michael Lewis Ingram, DJ Honeycomb, and as always, it is good to have you in the house. A very hot Saturday afternoon across many parts of the country. Soul Tree Radio in the Raw, sponsored by the Black Athlete Sports Network, our friends here at Blog Talk Radio, our friends and colleagues at WCLM 1450 AM, Richmond, the soul of Richmond, Virginia, Cowboy Reggie and crew with Sports Talk. The Cowboy will be riding in a few moments. Our friends and colleagues at WUFO 1080, the Mix AM up in Buffalo, New York. Pat Freeman, the mighty Oba, and them doing good work trying to help the citizens of Western New York realize the future in putting through a stadium that will offer jobs and other things that the local politics is not allowing at the moment. Obstruction, something we'll deal with a little later on in this show. Our friends at Guardian Caps, Leonard Hansen and Mike Feely, and a special shout-out to my brother Anthony Johnson, who does a great show Thursday nights from 9 to 10 on Blog Talk. I was humbled by having the opportunity to come on and discuss my book, Imitation in Life, which is now out on Amazon and will be available on Kindle by the end of the weekend. We have an intriguing menu tonight, rather this afternoon, and I just want to go over the menu very quickly. On Turntable One, we got a remix. On Side A, The Supreme Target, how the recent Supreme Court rulings on the Voting Rights Act confirms the sinister agenda of Bush Jr.'s final term in office. On Side B, Love the One and Marry If You Wanna, the one you're with high court rulings on gay marriage finally redressed, we hope. People now are trying to take credit for stuff they didn't do. And our own Queen of Extreme, Rhonda Harper, will say that's not happening in her neck of the woods, and she's going to explain why later on. On Turntable 2, we have the return of Mr. Biggs as Gary Norris Gray springs a mousetrap on ESPN with his piece on LeBron James, which is currently pissing people off and running on blackathlete.net. In addition, on Turntable 3, on Side A, Murder in the First, 2 NFL players, now former NFL players, have been arrested on murder charges. And on Side B, on behalf of the family, the real reason why Tim Tebow was traded to New England. We'll also throw in the pot, if we have time, Alex Rodriguez under fire in New York City, set up courtesy of the local media. And the 2013 CFL season begins, and hail to the Stanley Cup champion Chicago Blackhawks. But to set things off, we've got to talk about what happened earlier this week with the Supreme Court rulings shooting down vital components of the Voting Rights Act. As my compadre Gary Norris Gray is saddling up. What's up, G?
Look at that rat.
Yes, indeedy. I know you've been doing some mouse trapping, brother. but I want to touch on the Supreme Court briefly before we just dabble into it to any great extent. You know, the Voting Rights Act wouldn't have been made necessary if it weren't for the atrocities that were committed. And every one of these old bastards that's sitting on that court knows about this. Yeah. We just came out of an election where voter suppression was attempted in several states, even states that weren't part of the voting rights ban. We saw heinous acts being done in Florida and in Ohio. Now, I don't know whether Florida's part of the ban, but I know Ohio wasn't. But seeing the tactics that were utilized in Ohio, one would think the last thing that would get challenged would be the Voting Rights Act, especially after the last time, Gary, that it was thrown out there for consumption. It was trounced in trying to repeal it or change it by it was unanimous in the Senate with 98 zip with 2 abstentions. So now we've got a whole change in the game, and we already see from the actions in Texas and other states that they are looking to make even more difficult Americans' right to vote.
My brother, we're going back backwards so fast that a train can't catch us.
Yeah, you're right.
What's happened throughout the country is the right wing Tea Party gangsters have propagandized the whole voting mechanism in America. And in the process, people are beginning to believe it. That's what I fear. People begin to believe this nonsense. And that scared me because I remember back in 1960s where Medgar Evers died for our right to vote. Where Martin Luther King died for our right to vote. And here we are, 2013, and we have to go back over this all over again? Come on now.
Gary, I was thinking about Representative John Lewis, who was there, who crossed that bridge, who had dogs set upon him.
Hey.
You know, he lived through all of that and still is trying to serve his country. And, you know, you got to think it is the ultimate smack in the face. I mean, this is a true bitch slap. You know, like, all the things that you guys fought for, we're going to take it away from you. And even though it doesn't totally suppress votes, it compromises the wherewithal and ability for people to get out and make easier the process to vote. They're changing the rules. They're changing the rules, Gary. Straight up. They're telling people in Texas now that we have to change the game because we know now that whites are the real minority. And we're going to make sure that we keep control of this process as long as possible. If you take away the vote, there's no pretending that there's a democracy, G.
Well, that's the whole thing about America. America always changes the rules when it doesn't fit the purpose. It happens in sports, it happens in politics, it happens in... Look at the game Thursday, the rules have changed.
Yeah, Rhonda's going to be in to talk about that too, but you know, we have to set the table first so that everybody really understands what I'm talking about in this first turntable. This goes back before the selection of this current court. We're talking about how back in the day, Robert Bork was up for nomination for the Supreme Court. Now, y'all might have heard me say this at some point, either on Gary's show or another time. But when Robert Bork came up for the court, he was one of those, you know, legal scholars. He was asked about his opinions on things, and, you know, he just said, yeah, well, you know, I'm smarter than all the rest of you sons of bitches, so I'm going to pontificate. And he did. He riffed on everything and probably scared the shit out of most folks who even had a slight liberal leaning because they knew if this cat got on the court was going to severely turn to the right. Shit, he probably made Scalia blush. But having said that, when they made sure that Bork was not going to get in and the vetting was proven to be, you know, no, it wasn't happening, that's when the Republicans, and the Republicans always say what you will about them, and most of them are disgusting, and a lot of them don't really know what the meaning of a Republican is. You have to have Fred's take on this when he comes in later. They made sure that when Alito and Roberts were up for a nomination, that any real questions were avoided. I remember that process and how they were steering people away, and the Democrats, like the weak asses they are, they didn't pursue. They didn't jump on the guy and say, no, we need firm answers. We need your opinions on these things now. They all bitched up, and they both got in. And say what you want. If you think that George Bush is a buffoon, that's fine. But his daddy ran the CIA for 22 years. This is an evil motherfucker. You know, the whole premise of him as the buffoon, I think, is a perfect foil for implying that, well, nobody could be that stupid. And I'm right. I don't think anybody could be that stupid. Even if he was on the buffoon side, he's got too many smart and evil people around him to keep him in check. So, as he's reading My Pet Goat, in that classroom while the buildings were being blown up in New York City,
Mm.
everybody's thinking, well, yeah, this cat's incompetent, blah, 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 blah. But no, the real bomb was this thing that he dropped on us through the executive branch to the judicial branch. And the fact now that our judicial branch of our checks and balances has been checked permanently, or at the very least checked for the next 25 years because of these two appointments, matters hugely. Because now it doesn't matter who's in the White House in the next few years. They're probably asking all these old fucks to stay in there and hold on as long as possible.
Yes.
But no matter what, Roberts in his early mid-50s and Alito also in his middle-late 50s are going to be the foundation for setting policy for our court for the next 25 to 30 years, long after Scalia, that bootlicking ass Clarence Thomas, and the rest of these cats are gone.
Yeah. We are in the American public is in serious trouble, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so because number one, you have a party that does not stand up for anything and falls for everything. You have a party that elected a brother to be president and didn't back him up after he got to the White House. You have a party that does not understand the real civil rights of Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And they sit there for 30 years doing absolutely nothing.
It's worse than that, Gary, because during these proceedings for Alito and Roberts, we did not see extensive coverage that implied that we're watching you guys. Whatever coverage came out on CNN or any of the other channels, you know, it was an exercise. There was no real critique on these guys. You know, they kind of tapped them on the shoulder and say, well, what about this? But they never pressed the issue. So they let these guys get in. And when they let them in, that's when the door was shut on a lot of things. Because even though Rhonda's coming in later on to talk about gay marriage and the feet of Doma and all the other stuff, gay marriage wasn't their target. You know, even though we know abortion clinics and a woman's right to choose is under attack in this country, Roe v. Wade wasn't their real target.
No.
There's one thing in common with blacks, whites, gays, straights, all American citizens, and that is their right to vote. So the voting rights was the real issue here. This was the real target in terms of compromising American citizens, because they know America's getting darker. That's just genetics. You know, I'm sorry that the schools here aren't teaching that, but that's the reality of the situation. And these group of elites, cabal, whatever you want to call it, are aware of the big picture here. So they've effectively said, not just to the states that were hampered because of the dirty stuff that they had done in years past, they've also made it easier for the other states. On Anthony Johnson's show, I talked about what happened in Pennsylvania. Everybody remembers when that asshole Republican came out and said, voting rights, we got them in check. No problem, book it. He said, we're going to win the state of Pennsylvania, meaning the Republicans are going to win because we're going to make it difficult for Democrats and anybody who's independent to vote because of this ID law. And, of course, they lost.
I don't want to scare your audience.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, we are at an identical historical moment as it was in post-Nazi Germany in 1919.
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact same political agenda in 1919 in Germany. It was right now in the United States. And they're coming behind with propaganda. Well, I mean, it's a diversion tactic.
Yeah, it is a diversion tactic.
This gay and lesbian agenda is a diversion tactic.
But see,
people are falling for the old okey doke and not focusing on their civil rights.
Well, now, I can't say it's a total diversion tactic, Gary, because we know in the past Bush scared America with, gays are going to get married in his second term, and he got over. Since then, gays as a political group have marshaled their forces. They got smarter, and they used financial clout and peer pressure to say, y'all not doing this shit. We pay taxes like everybody else. So if we're paying taxes, then we deserve everything that being a tax-paying citizen implies. That if I'm with my partner, lover, whatever, and we want to get hooked up and married formally, we have the right to marry, and as the standing joke is, be miserable just like everybody else who's straight and married or whatever the deal is.
But what I'm trying to say is that what they have done with Republican playbook is divide and conquer. What you do is you divide two groups, and President George Walker Bush did one thing that no other president ever done in the history of America. He divided the Black American church. And people say, how did he do that? Well,
faith-based initiatives. That's right.
That broke up the conservative black groups and liberal black church groups. That was the most powerful thing that George W. Bush ever did.
Well, I would say I'm agreeing with you on that, G, but I also would have to throw into the pot that it was a combination of these faith-based initiative programs that were started and the promise of money, which helped to exacerbate the split that you just talked about. But if the so-called black church foundation of much of some would say our culture, if the churches are operating with a political tip that's deleterious to the overall mental health and welfare of us, you've got major problems because everybody leaned on the church. And Bush used that as a wedge to come in and say, we'll give y'all some money for jobs. And I put the word jobs in quotes because it's highly unlikely that those jobs ever got any further other than the money that was set up to create jobs for people who were connected with these churches to give them jobs to run programs. But by the time they finish hiring everybody, there's no money for the actual people that they were supposedly hiring for jobs. Mm-hmm. Having said these things, that combination, telling everybody from the pulpit to not vote or not say anything bad about Bush Jr. and him getting reelected, led to the tragedy that turned out to be this carving up of the Voting Rights Act.
This man, and I God audacity, he said, I mean, this is where I get really upset with the Washington, D.C. hierarchy. You sat there in Washington, D.C. and said, if you say anything bad against me, I'm going to cut you off my funding. Really? I mean, it's like, how dare you? That is almost like free speech, almost walking on free speech.
Well, it's not almost walking. It is walking, Gary, because when you're talking about funding, I want to stay focused on the Supreme Court because we have to start looking at this from the top down. There were states that weren't in this voting rights ban from the jump street, okay? What was done in Ohio was something that Texas and other states were looking at, and they saw that they could get away with stretching boundaries. They saw that in gerrymandering, you could take people out. Now, gerrymandering is not something that was new. It's been done before, as Professor Fred is getting ready to come into the mix. But what made gerrymandering effective as the Republicans used it was that the Republicans were more keen on targeting where their people were. So on that map of wherever across the states, They could say, we get these districts, it facilitates things for us, and it makes the process easier for us to get over our agenda. Because we made the point a few shows ago, when you see what the Boehners and the Canners of the world have done, somebody somewhere has got to be saying, who let these motherfuckers back in? Who voted for them? And you must realize that there are a lot of fucking stupid people who had to have voted for them, and it wasn't just political power or influence or money spent on TV commercials that got them in, that led them to the point where they could do these kind of things. Now, as I throw Professor Fred into the mix, Fred, you're Republican. You know, we know that this thing was, as I say this, I'm referring to voting rights, was always under attack. And now it's been altered. You're in a state that wasn't under the voting rights ban, but clearly there was some methodology behind certain things that were just done there recently regarding something about legal lynching and a couple of other items. But first of all, good afternoon, and just give me something to throw into the pot regarding the Supreme Court decision on the Voting Rights Act as you see it.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Unfortunately, this is what we have seen coming for years. Mm-hmm. And from several perspectives, let's take it from the first perspective. Mm-hmm. Okay, gerrymandering is nothing new. That's old news.
Right.
Okay, accept that. Also, look at the fact that, you know, we joke about Reagan, but Reagan's been right on this particular part of it. Mm-hmm. All these people who claim to be Democrats are not.
Yep.
You mentioned, how do these people keep getting back in? How they get back in? Look at the numbers. And we'll just stay in North Carolina. One of the things that they did was very key in North Carolina was they circled certain areas and said, okay, we put the Negroes over here. Mm-hmm. We'll come around on the other side and link this bunch that we know are good conservative white folk, mm-hmm. no matter the race. Because, remember, these are people who continually put Jesse Helms, John East, Elizabeth Dole, you name the Republicans, they put them in.
Right.
So, and these were not only just precincts, but these were whole congressional districts where you would have Jesse Helms winning hands down in a county or district that has been held by Democrats for the last 100 years. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, how did it happen? Well, okay, if you got 20 or less percent Republicans in this area, and you got 75 plus percent Democrats in that area, who voted for them?
There you go.
Republicans couldn't have got a man lynched. They didn't have votes for it. Mm-hmm. So that tells you all these people who are supposedly in bed with you eat. These Democrats have been wavering back and forth for years. We saw that most maliciously back in 64 when you had the two, like in Mississippi sent the two delegations.
Yes.
And the white, rather than let blacks sit with them, got up and walked out. And then the quote, the Democrat Party would not seat the black Democrats because they were afraid of losing the Democrat vote, the white Democrat vote in Mississippi, which at that time was about 50-50 anyway. And Lyndon Johnson, everybody talked about what a genius he was, but I thought it was stupid because, you know, you had a situation there where the Democrats, the white Democrats were outnumbered by the black Democrats. So you actually not but they were still pandering to their redneck brothers, what it boiled down to. So when you look at this whole, you know, part of the arguments that's coming forth out of this has to do with, well, these states aren't as bad as they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's like saying strychnine has been dropped from 75% to 70%. No,
so
it's not
kill
as
you.
bad
It just
as
won't
it
kill you
was.
as quick.
But
Yep.
you're just as dead if you drink it.
Mm-hmm.
So part of the problem here was the question asked probably was and probably is part of what triggered the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, you know how it is when you want to know certain things. If you don't ask the right question, right time, the right way,
that's
then
right.
the answer you get can be skewed all kind of ways. And this is part of how this happened. I've had a couple of minor discussions on this because I don't trust the Democrats and I don't trust Republicans, although I'm one of them. But we got to, we as the people got to become more better read. We got to get out of our comfort zone more.
That's right.
Talk to people, and we got to get off our behinds and get some things done. Sending our representatives out there, they can get bought off, or sometimes they don't know any more about it than you do.
Oh, Fred, hold it right there, because you just hit it right on the head. We're talking about people getting bought off. We got some wisdom from the chat room. This is an attempt at deconstructing our country, marginalizing groups of people, and stripping us of our rights. Nothing positive can or will come of it. It's about destruction. There's no doubt about that. As you said what you said, Fred, about marginalization, as what we got from the chat room, I want to throw in our own Queen of Extreme, because Rhonda hit it right on the head a while back. We go to our officials, and Reggie was right, like you said. Your officials are supposed to be your extension of your voice. If they don't do something, when you tell them, we got an issue here, can you say something about this? Your representative is supposed to say yes, especially when the response to said issue is so overwhelming that it's got to be dealt with. And when it came to the Defense of Marriage Act and gays finally being able to marry and love who they want, there was jubilation in much of the country. And Rhonda, because this is something that you had to jump on long before anybody thought it was going to manifest itself into a fruitful conclusion, I need you to speak on what some of these elected officials and other voices like the NAACP didn't do to help facilitate the process.
Oh, there was our own mayor in San Jose kept us from joining the rest of Northern California in the Defense of Marriage Act and marriage equality. I mean, they had a petition going around. It was the mayor's agreement. They all signed on for marriage equality. As a mayor, we agree that all our citizens. This is a mayor. We all agree that our citizens should be created equal. So and so and so. He added his own agenda in there. He didn't believe it because of his Christian beliefs. He didn't believe in it. But he was representing himself. He wasn't representing the people, because the people in San Jose actually, like an overwhelming majority of like 89%, were like okay about marriage equality. But because he had his Christian beliefs in there, which I could have swore it said separation of church and state, that, he decided that he was going to sit out and not even sign this mayor's agreement. I mean, Viragosa, all the big mayors, Bloomberg, everybody did. Everybody signed this thing except for him. And we're the 10th largest city. So for us, it was embarrassing. Now, you scoot over to, and then here you go. So now you got the mentality of the mayor. And then I got a Clarence Thomas wannabe across the street from there at the NAACP. And this man I've never seen sell out not only his people, but lesbians and gays. I've seen him sell out so many people. But when it came to this one issue of marriage equality, he put his religious beliefs in front of progress. Then when it passes, they strike down DOMA. They strike down Prop 8. He takes his ass out to City Hall, and he speaks on behalf of marriage equality. because somebody was going to hold a mic and a camera in front of his face. Now, I'm sitting back here, you telling me Chick-fil-A jokes, right? Because that's the reason why I resigned and sent the complaint up to Sacramento in the first place. And let me tell you about Sacramento. Sacramento's NAACP was called by the Bay Area Reporter, which is our, Bay Area gay and lesbian news. It's been around forever.
Right.
Was called Alice Huffman, the president of the California and Hawaii chapter, and she said that she hoped that the scandal, because I wrote a complaint about the Chick-fil-A joke, hoped that the scandal didn't tarnish Ben Jealous's visit, like as if he was the king of some country. I mean, I've never seen African Americans act the way that they acted in this last year. I mean, it was just disgusting for me as an African American, and I know I've held an NAACP card since I was 5. So for me to sit here and watch this, and I'm out picketing for y'all, and my first speech was in front of the NAACP when I was 7. It was on Martin Luther King. Had I known what I know now about Bay of Rustin, we'd have changed that up, but still. You know what I'm saying?
Rhonda, hang on a second, because you just brought up a good point. Gary alluded to this, and Fred, I want you to speak on this. Is the greatest damage done in this, and I'm talking about through the week of the Supreme Court decisions, is the greater damage done in what Gary said about the divisiveness where they use the divide and conquer strategy to drive a wedge in blacks through this premise of gay or straight? Or was the damage done, hold on, Rhonda, hold on, or was the damage done by what you just alluded to, Fred, that we've had a whole bunch of stealth Democrats for a long, long time, and their conservative nature, especially when it comes to those who are more church folk regarding things like gay marriage, is that the other side of the coin? Which has been most damaging, in your opinion?
Well, it's hard to say which is most damaging. It's sort of a timing kind of thing.
Yeah.
But what you have to look at is this. Again, we had an exhibit here in our library for about 2 months talking about Anne Frank, and they had all this stuff about burning books and all this kind of stuff, and which was admirable at the time. My problem with this, the good Christian white folk of North America, in the South especially, were all upset about burning books in Germany, inside the Third Reich, and in Italy and so forth. But these same white folk had no problem with burning Negroes on trees and light poles.
Thank you.
In North, and across really anywhere in the United States, because all lynchings did not occur below the Mason-Dixon line.
Thank you.
Nor were the Mexicans and Indians out west. So and these same folk who had no problem talking about burning books had major problems when you bring up or get Indians their land back. So in America we have an ongoing we have this ongoing thing about being hypocrites, and I mean first class card carrying. We'll wax all religious about certain things, but then there's something just as bad. Because see, one thing that's forgotten in all this. Okay, but you're going to use the sin factor, right? Okay.
There you go.
How does God envision sin? There is no rating system.
Thank you.
I said that too. There is no hierarchy.
I mean, you said there's no hierarchy of sin. It's just sin. Okay, and a lot of the stuff, and my thing has always been, who you do and what you do is your business. First and foremost, keep it to yourself. I don't want to know what you do. And, with some people, I be thinking, if I know you a certain way, I don't want to be bothered with you no way that has nothing to do with being gay or straight. Because, I was in the park about 2 weeks ago. I was getting ready to go across the park about 2 weeks ago. And this guy walks up and he says, he asked me where I was going. I told him on my way to the post office. He said, well, you might want to go a different way if you got to be there in the next few minutes. So I said, I just said, stand at the top of the hill and watch. Well, a few seconds later, this group of guys came running across the park. And there's this guy sitting on the bench. He jumps up, but by the time they jumped up, he was covered almost as if it was, ball carrier on kickoff. I mean, these guys took them down. Turns out the next day, and they're talking about it in the newspaper, this guy is a known sex offender who was waiting there, who was down the line, was waiting to meet a 15-year-old. Now, as bad as it looked, the way they took him down, because two of the guys I knew that took him down was people I knew, and one of the guys about my size, so I can imagine what he felt like when that joker, put a shoulder into him. But at the same time, if you're a pedophile, I don't want to know you that way. And matter of fact, if I had a chance, I would help them catch you. You see?
Right.
But we have all these closet people who say they profess this and profess that. We've heard all the story about the Catholic priests, the nuns, right on down the line, whether it's Catholic or otherwise. We know about the good pastors who are screwing all the women in the church and this. Yep. Even to the one of the major parts of the fallout between Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad was he discovered he was screwing all these girls and then turning around, basically castigating them in public. He's talking about what tramps they were, but he was the one screwing them. So it's nothing new that the whole thing of hypocrisy. And the real downside is too many people are willing to either look the other way until it's manifests a certain way, or they come out and try to be wax all religious at a time when it ain't about religion at all.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
Yep.
Ron and Fred speaking on that exactly. It's like gay or straight knows nothing in the realm of hypocrisy. It's an equal opportunity offender. But
it is.
When you look at the reaction out there with folks happy that they can finally marry, the NAACP tried to take credit in large part for work that they really didn't do, and not just didn't want to do. Didn't
go march. And if you're on my Facebook page, if you're out there, you can always join. It's Rhonda R. Harper. But if you're on my Facebook page, one of the actual people that started the resolution for the NAACP actually chimed in when I put a knock knock joke up there, and it was like knock knock who's there, when the fuck who, when the fuck did the NAACP in San Jose ever support marriage equality? Ever, because they've never been to a march. I've always gone, and they've never even known about the things that I've done. And for them to sit up and grab a microphone because there's a camera there now finally in your face is not only hypocritical, but it's just disgusting on so many levels. It would be like Clarence Thomas, all of a sudden, he going to go to a freedom march for some black people. You just know he was in the wrong spot. And this dude is a reverend, so the hypocrisy of everything that he's done, and he's got a sexual harassment complaint against him at the state level.
Jesus.
So, I mean, he's just embattled, and for him to even step out, and I'm sure he was trying to do damage control, but, bruh, the damage is done, and this community is so small, we know exactly who's where. Now, they can turn around and they see me standing at the flag raising, and you're not there. There's a problem. If I'm down at Chick-fil-A and I'm picketing and your ass is walking in to go get you a chicken sandwich, how's that looking on you, bruh?
Yeah, no joke, exactly. Gary.
So I don't have time for this hypocrisy that's going on right here, right now, with them claiming credit. And they said that there was like 4 or 5 of them, and I know they added on one. Just to fill that position of an LGBT leader and try to push her, out there like she did it. She was, let me tell you, the only person that did anything for the LGBT community here in San Jose was me. And I left behind a Chick-fil-A joke.
I can confirm that for real.
Okay.
Gary, when we talk about all of this, you just talked about how the divide and conquer was thrown into effect with much of this stuff. But does it bother you or collectively, do we all feel that black folks specifically are losing their voice, or that their voices are clearly and things that matter to them are clearly becoming more and more ignored as this thing continues, because even in a situation where, as Rhonda stated, there were black people there who could have affected something, who would have said something and stood for something, they all walked away. And nobody gave a rat's ass. This wasn't talked about on mainstream news. It wasn't even talked about on the so-called black networks. So we've been gutted emotionally here. And how does this sit with you, G?
Well, what's happened? The African American community has lost its political power, and the reason why, look at the Latino Americans.
Mm-hmm.
What do they do? If you don't do the X, Y, and Z for us, we're gonna vote for other party. That's exactly what they did. So what Republican Party gonna do now? They're gonna vote for immigration law, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true.
The same thing happening with gay rights. The gay rights people said, look, if you don't do what we said, we're going to vote against you. And that's what it is. The African Americans are going to stand up, stay strong, and vote their voice. We have not done that for the past 8 years because we think it's easy. We have a black president. Hello? That don't mean anything.
No, it doesn't mean anything. And I think, Rhonda, the fact that voices are being stifled, or when they are being blurted out, they're not being listened to, I think is even worse. It's about ignoring more than listening, because when situations have happened, folks simply just turned a deaf ear. They simply didn't care. Oh yeah, there's those angry Negroes again going off. But the component of the Latino interest, as Gary implied, people forget many of these Latinos who come here come from countries where they know the politics is in their face all the time. So they come here better organized because they have a better understanding of what they need to do. When Mexicans have interests that serve Mexican Americans, they're in sync with it. It used to matter to us because there were more of us than anywhere else. But we know the numbers have changed now, and Latinos are here in full force more than we are. But what political clout we had got diminished because people got lazy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. There's another component, too, that goes with the Latino community. Mm-hmm. If you go to Cinco de Mayo or you go to a quinceañera, you can go, let me tell you something, Mexicans are more, and you could say Latino, but the predominant factor here are Mexicans, right? They are so united just by nationality, just because they're Mexican. They could come from, Maria is from Texas, okay? You would think that she came straight out of Mexico and walked across. That's what you would think. And people, they discriminated against because of that. But Maria's going to hold on to her heritage. That's who she is. That's where she gets. She's not going to homogenize it for somebody else. Their whole thing is about having that Mexican pride. We try to chase the Joneses. Our buying power is so high because we try to change to fit somebody else's mold that don't even want us to fit in it.
Exactly.
And we're spending trillions of dollars on it. So if we unified like Mexicans did, we probably have a lot more strength and power. And let me tell you, when it came to, Gary's right, when it came to same-sex marriage, Mexican aunties, Mexican grandmamas, everybody got together and was like, yes, it was like an 89% approval. I've never seen it like that. I've never seen anything like that. Whereas you have an African-American community and you got to keep pushing up the numbers, and we can't import nobody. It's us. But we think there's a hierarchy in suffering. They think, and today is Stonewall. Today is the anniversary of Stonewall, the Stonewall riots. And for everybody that don't know about that, it's the riots that happened. Gay folks got tired of getting pushed around out there in Greenwich Village, and they went off and fought against the cops. Now, I don't understand why that riot would be any different than another riot, because there was some people that had been oppressed that got pissed, and they started fighting back. That was it, period, point blank, and that's why you have gay pride. There would be no pride without Stonewall. So why is somebody else's struggle more important than another person's struggle? I get the lynching. I get that. That's my family. That's my heritage. That's where I'm from. I'm never going to forget that. But now you see another group that you could help, that you have the ability to help. We helped the Chinese stay here.
Yep.
And now they can't even stand us.
Right.
Go ahead, Gary. Go ahead.
African Americans help other cultures all the time. We help everybody else. We help our own.
Don't help myself.
We're the only group. We're the only ones that will not stand up for other African Americans.
Well, no, Gary. I can't say that's true, Gary. I can't say that's true. I would rather rephrase and say we've been compromised in our efforts because our efforts always had to be collusionary. We had to have coalitions come in to help. And just like when Jews came down to help in the freedom marches and all the other things like that, and everybody had to get shamed and understand.
But why? That's my point, and I'm sure that's Gary's point. There are a majority of people that will go out. I will give my shirt, literally, and I did before. Took my sweater off with $20 and handed it to a black woman on a bench that was sleeping on a bench in Los Angeles. Do you know what she told me? I don't need your charity. I'm a millionaire. You see what I'm saying? So I'm with Gary on that. We try to help each other. We do. But if we I'm not disagreeing with that.
No, Ronald, I wasn't disagreeing with that. Where I was coming from with this was the fact that it wasn't about not helping. We've always been able to help each other. We've always done that from within. I'm talking about big picture when it comes to, like, we had to have whites step in and shame folks into making them understand that the world was watching them in order to facilitate voting rights and some of the other things. But now, by ourselves, any time that we've done this, we stood up, we did our own thing. You know, that's what caused Tulsa to burn to the ground, because they resented the fact that we were doing our own thing. You know, all the bootstrap arguments that they threw down there, we had done that in Tulsa. We had done that in other places that weren't as popular. But Tulsa was clear because this was an entire city where you had a main street where black businesses were thriving, and it had nothing to do with affirmative action or any of this other stuff, and they hated it. They couldn't stand the fact that they were earning a living, making money, and being prosperous. So out of straight-up hate, they burnt that shit to the ground. You know, and we can't change that reality. I'm sorry, go ahead, Fred.
That's the first and only time that American warplanes were used against Americans in America. But, you know, bigger than that, those people, you know, the part of the problem is, and this is part of the whole Willie Lynch thing. Okay, when we as a people see what went on at Greenwood, you know, the place where the Gap Band comes from.
Yep.
We had Hayti in Durham, North Carolina. We had Sweet Auburn in Atlanta. Part of the problem is we as people will look at those places and actually refer to, because, you know, you invariably hear about, you know, the tea parties and the, you know, the Saturday or Sunday afternoon things and the, you know, all the kind of things that we allegedly resent. And our music today doesn't help this because if you listen to some of the lyrics, they put down people who are upwardly mobile. We have a society now that says if Rhonda wants to be the smart female Urkel in her class, she's trying to be white. Not understanding the very stuff that they're talking about being so smart at is some of it is things that we invented. Calculus.
Thank you.
Physics. You know, all those kinds of things. You know, all those things that we
did that.
We have not totally embraced our own heritage, and we find ways to diminish it and marginalize it. If we respect it better by respecting each other better, we will get much further. You see, we as a people, I mean, people know us to a point that they understand the buttons to push to make us turn on each other.
Thank you.
You know, I remember one time meeting with this group, and I'm trying to figure out, what's, and this was a group of Democrats, of course. I was one of the few Republicans who was there.
Mm-hmm.
And, this gentleman's going through the crowd, and he's shaking hands here and shaking hands there. And by the time he gets through the room, he doesn't know who I am because I am a Republican, and I was basically infiltrating the system just as well. They had a gathering of black folks.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't know. He thinks everybody's all the same.
Right.
So I asked one of my good friends. Matter of fact, my mentor was one, and another friend. I said, "Well, what did he tell you?" Come to find out, the ploy was, it was more or less, well, I'll give Rhonda 5. We're gonna get 5 jobs for her.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna give Gary 7 jobs. We'll give Mike 12. We'll give Reggie 10.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever else. But don't say nothing to nobody.
Yeah.
So he has actually gone through and caused a division right there. And some of the people who were promised 7 didn't deserve 2.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody in the room knew this. And because of that, it was, he must be doing something I don't know. He must have some pull I don't know nothing about, right on down the line. So you actually gone in and see, these are the kind of ploys that have been played on us, and we don't understand that the jobs he's promising. He went to the country club and hung out with the fellas where they divvied up the jobs.
Exactly.
And he probably got 200 to divide among quote his Negroes.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And and these are the kind of things. And see, this is why I was talking about the whole buyout thing. Because see, when for years there were white folks who thought they owned and knew Democrats, or black folks as Democrats. Never. I mean, they until they saw like one group in particular. Until they saw me at a I think it was a John East function, they never believed that I was a Republican because, like the lady told me when I went to register, you people are always Democrats. and my first reply was, so obviously you don't know history because until just a few years ago, it was illegal for me to be a Democrat, a black and Democrat in the South to begin with. So what are you talking about, smart lady?
Hello.
But you see, in our blatant ignorance, because see, we're so ready to sit up and quote Tupac and all these. I mean, I listened to something the other day about Biggie Smalls, and homeboy's talking about underoos. This is some of his most prolific rap. He's talking about underoos.
Yes,
so
I remember him.
What does this have to do with building up your community? Because see, as much as we like to take credit for rap, and one of the people who helped found rap is from my hometown. But as I've explored it, I started asking the question. Remember how our songs used to have understandable lyrics? Our songs were about love. Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud, and all this other kind of stuff. Wasn't gonna be no, and see, us as men would go back and look. So I wasn't gonna, you weren't gonna talk about you weren't gonna call my mama a bitch if she was the biggest hoe in town.
Thank you.
You weren't gonna talk, you weren't, all this other stuff that we permit in our language now. So because of this, we have marginalized. We have been going for the money and marginalized ourselves. Thus, we get the BET videos. And it's gonna be call that educational or whatever you want to do it. This utter nonsense because see, at the worst, whether it was jazz, rock and roll, or whatever, our people were, what was the worst? Ain't no sense in going home. Jody got your girl and gone.
That's right.
But probably that one in Stagger Lee where the guy got killed.
Right.
That was probably two of the worst songs in our whole library of music. Stagger Lee and Jody. So, other than owning the record companies, that kind of thing, where are the white folks in this? Because when we took over and start running our own music companies and all these other things. At least even if we were just fronts. When we took over, look back, our music pushed us down.
That's right.
Or pulled us down.
Well, you know, hold on, Fred, hold on, because that's an intriguing point. We're talking paradigm shift here, because to go back to what you said about music, as Cowboy Reggie's in the mix, we always had our own apparatus. People made fun about the so-called Chitlin circuit, but the Chitlin circuit was a viable lifeline in terms of artists having not just venues to play, but constant places where they could go and break their material out. We talked about that on one of our music shows, how in New York you had the Apollo Theater, and Rhonda and the Rainbows would go from the Apollo in New York to the Uptown in Philly, and then she would travel to the Regal in Chicago, and then she would travel to the Fox in Detroit. There was a whole route. There was a circuit where acts were getting a chance to work, and money was being made at venues that were, if they were not black-owned, they were certainly patronized by blacks, and black folks put a lot of money into the issue of maintaining that. But to your point, when lyrics go from talking about sweet love and all the other good things and whatnot to, like you said, calling people bitches and hoes and stuff, it's a paradigm shift, a mind shift, and it definitely is degrading. As much as I like a lot of the music, there is a lot of absence of big picture thought in the intents of some of the people that are pushing this. And as I say this, Reggie, I'm throwing you in the pot. Tell me what you're thinking.
Well, first of all, I appreciate you having me express myself, because so many places we can't express ourselves. See the mouse when a certain European commentator said that Doc Rivers quit on the team, and the mouse said, oh, yeah, we can get some stuff started, but I digress. But, gentlemen, the bottom line is that at one time when we had the sweet music, it was like an oak tree, and when that big oak tree had the roots, where the weeds came in being rap music and gangster and infiltrated. And what you saw is the craziness of the Europeans say, guess what? Anytime we can use music, so we know Africa, we know that the blacks on the drum beat, music is something that they just gravitate to. So we can go ahead and get their music, get their image. And my man, Dr. Ishmael Barry Shango talked about this. Dr. Clark talked about this. And many of our great Africans have. But see, where we dropped the ball is that we don't hold people accountable. People are mad right now because Supreme Court and the gays got a victory. Well, guess what? They came out without 1,000. They came out 10, 20, 30,000. Guess what? They put their money where their mouth is. And right now, we are looked at as a joke as far as black folks. Why? Because anytime you make fun of a black person, you're not held accountable. Those white folks that got rid of Paula Dean as far as sponsors, they weren't thinking about us. They looked at them and say, no. We're going to control our image, because guess what? Within 6 months to a year, just like Don Imus, she will be back on TV. She's selling her book, and all this will be forgotten.
Hold on.
We don't hold people accountable.
Reggie, hold on a second, because Gary's got to prepare for the code. Gary, give us something to throw into the pot, and then give us a preview of the code.
Well, Reggie is right on the head. There's another guy on ESPN who tried to clown Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers said, okay, I'm going to come right back at you, and here it is. Now, look, you all know what ESPN doing. We all know at least what we need to do as African Americans. We need to boycott all their products.
I say.
That's what we need to do.
Give us a preview of the code, G.
Go boycott day. We're going to talk about that and the NBA draft and among other things.
All right. That's at 4 o'clock Eastern. As soon as we're done here, we switch over to the Cove. Gary, we'll see you then. Also, Reggie, I didn't mean to cut you off, but the whole issue that when we were all younger, all of us, we heard songs with titles like Black Pearl, My Ebony Princess. And when we did hear something about blues, it was I ain't got no money, I ain't got me no woman, or I ain't got me no money and no woman, which we know, according to Gil Scott-Heron, is a double blues. But in this era, we have seen dehumanization of women, not just on CDs or live performances. We've seen it in telling them how they need invasive ultrasound, how they don't have rights over their own reproductive systems, how a woman had to stand in the Texas Congress and filibuster for 13 hours to fight off an attempt to get rid of 42 of the 47 abortion clinics in Texas. And whether you, however you feel on abortion is one thing. If it's the law of the land, folks have the right to do whatever, and women have the right to do whatever with their own bodies. But in the spirit, we see all these things being handed down, fought about, fought against, and as Reggie implied, Rhonda, black folks at the bottom of a shit pit.
That's true. That's the truth. And I don't even know, I mean, somebody has to come up with a plan. I was watching, I can't even believe it. It was Morning Joe. It was the only time I'd ever even watched it. I think it was Morning Joe. What is that show that Reverend Sharpton sits in? It's Cup of Joe, right? Isn't that Morning Joe?
No, that's his is Politics Nation.
Okay, well he was guest on Morning Joe.
Okay.
And I sat here in horror, and I was sitting here tweeting about it too because it was heck early in the morning. I couldn't believe it. It was the first time I'd ever seen it. And they got on the voting rights.
Yep.
And I watched 4 white people beat Al Sharpton down. I was like, why is he even on this show? They didn't even give him a chance to open his mouth. Like, literally, it was like a verbal attack on voters' rights. I mean, like, we shouldn't even have it. I mean, I couldn't even believe they didn't even. This man is you know, obviously we're doing better than Jesse at this point. But we have gotten to the point where even our own strong voices are being muted out now by the media.
Yep.
Well, something that we as a people have not looked at is why is it that white folks and other folks get 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 representatives, and we got to come up with one who
there you
can
go.
outfight and out-talk.
Yep.
And, you know, because among the things that I look at various things is, you know, I'm working on this project with HBCU Heritage Museum and stuff, and I'm looking at a list of people to bring in as like an advisory, that sort of thing. Now, as much as I think Al Sharpton for civil rights and all that kind of stuff, when I get looking at business, I'm going to see if I can find Earl Graves Jr. or Sr.
There you go.
I'm going to find a Willie Davis businessman. I'm going to find a Tyler Perry businessman who knows media. I'm going to find an Oprah Winfrey who knows media and business, all those kind of things. Because we get it twisted. Why are we talking about, you know, granted, Bill Cosby, I think, talk about all kinds, because he's been a businessman, he's been a media mogul for years, and he has a working knowledge of the political side of things, so I'm not going to dismiss that.
Right.
But when it comes to the stone politics of it, there are probably a couple of other brothers I want to look at. When I want to know how to, you know, when I want to know about running Fortune 500 companies, I know there's probably right now, I know the guy that runs the company that owns Olive Garden and
Beatrice? Is it Parsons?
You know, there's 2 or 3 others out there, a couple of young ladies out there who, another lady who used to think Xerox, a lady used to run Xerox, another lady used to run Maxwell House. You know, those are the kind of people I'm going to go after. We don't talk to them people. When we hear white folks and Jewish people talking about money and all that kind of stuff, why would you go get Al Sharpton?
Exactly.
Exactly. Because what do? Oh, let's talk to Warren Buffett. Let's talk to, say, Perot. You know, let's talk to Mr. Gates.
Bill Gates.
Because he knows money. He knows media. He knows the electronic. You see, again, when I was looking at these lists, and I'm looking at these lists from the perspective of, okay, what have black folks done? You know, have there ever been any black folks who ran these Fortune 500 companies? And with me, I'm just going to look for HBCU people first.
And the answer is yes.
Great, who are the great doctors from HBCUs? Who are the great attorneys?
Mm-hmm.
I'm as good as Al Sharpton was. I'm going to find Hill and Thurgood and a few others. I want to sue somebody. I'm going to go find Willie Gary.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
Because we allow these people to contact the wrong people on our behalf, and then wonder why we don't get, because I know Al can pull. He can pull a text in a second because he's done it enough. So he knows what and he can make it sound good.
Right.
But will it be, as they say in Scripture, will it stand the test?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times it won't. But we have allowed that time to be taken up by a good brother, good, well-intended brother.
Mm-hmm.
And see, this is what they do to us, and this is what we do to us.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what is about to be done to us. And because of that, invariably we end up marginalized, cut off, left hanging here and there, and all that kind of silly stuff. When you wonder, well, how did that happen? Well, it happened because you allowed it. Matter of fact, it happened because you made it happen.
You facilitated it. You facilitated it. To Rhonda's point.
You were the one out there who got your jaws caught on fire and wondered why, and you poured the gas and lit the match.
There you go. You pointed out, and Rhonda pointed out how Reverend Sharpton was getting carved up on Morning Joe. You got to realize, was you or Rhonda, you made the great point. There's 50 of everybody else, and there's one or two figureheads that get appointed as so-called black leaders, and they get thrown into the pot with the weight of the world on them. This is what Dr. West talked about when I was sitting in on a symposium about the plight of young black men in Philadelphia at the University of Pennsylvania. It wears you the fuck out. Rhonda, you were there on the front lines championing a cause. They wore your black ass out, did they not?
Oh, they wore me right out. They wore me right to ER.
And I'm not trying to be and I'm not trying to be flip when I say this. It wears you out. It does. I think even if Reverend Sharpton hadn't been going on a diet, he would have lost that weight just from the sheer stress of the volume of stuff that was thrown at him. But in that spirit,
Mike,
the fact that he was there. Good.
Let me ask Rhonda a question. Rhonda, when these attacks were coming, did they attack you in your areas of weakness or strength?
Weaknesses. It's always weakness. I'm always single. They always wait until I'm alone when I get attacked.
Here's what I'm getting at. See, typically in a debate situation, which this is, where they're not going to attack you where you know you're well read, where they know you're well read and all that kind of stuff. They're going to hit you with some little peripheral bull crap that really got much to do about nothing.
Yep.
And so now you gotta see. It's like there are various people who don't even stop and ask political questions. They don't ask me about Black history kind of stuff because they figure, he's strong in that. Now you see, blows them out of the water when they want. Well, you saw this plane taking off the other day. It did a tight twist to the left and it popped up. Yeah, they were getting above the clouds. Why we want to do that? Because it's lightning. And, so you do know a little bit about aircraft. Yes, I do. At one point, I actually considered being an aeronautical engineer. Thus, all my life, I know what a C5 is. I know what a C-17 is. I know what the torque rate and all that kind of stuff is. Why? Because I read. But see, beyond a certain point, you get into the fluid lines and the hydraulics and that kind of stuff. Hey, over my head. But see, look at the questions they're going to ask in Al Sharpton. Now, it's going to sound all on point to you as the John Q. Public, especially the unread John Q. Public.
Oh yeah.
And his answer may come back sounding very prolific because he's going to try to take a jab. where he can. Problem is, they know his best jab. I mean, if he may be one of those guys who's better at an uppercut than he is at a right cross. And see, they're gonna come at him and make him throw a left hook. So he's trying to hit back. They're gonna hit him where he's weak, and he's gonna have to hit back with the weakness. Because if you sort of sit down and go through this stuff, it's bull crap in, bull crap out from both parties.
That's right.
Yep.
That's exactly right. And remember, he's only got a limited amount of time to make his point. So Fred's right as rain on this, because if he doesn't throw haymakers and land those bad boys, then they won't back off. And that they had thrown four near the attack, for lack of a better word, the Reverend, is an indication of that. And that's why it wears you out. Because 1 minute you're thinking about a certain way to handle certain things, and as Fred said, they come from the periphery with something else, and then you're accountable for understanding that you're not just speaking for you. We all grew up thinking that we saw somebody who was black, they were representing all of us. Whether we saw them on TV, we saw them in the public light. As our self-awareness grew, that changed, but the bottom line was that's how we were all seen. So you didn't know whether or not Fred was conservative or progressive, and you didn't know whether Rhonda was straight or gay, and you didn't know whether Mike was whatever. The bottom line is they had everybody lumped in, and it was all monolithic in their mindsets because one represented all of us. So if one was bad, then we were all bad, and if one was good, we were all good. It's scary that premise comes to this point, but if we come back to where we started with the Supreme Court decisions, whether it was gay marriage and defensive marriage finally being done with and allowed now, the vote still trumps everything because the vote affects everyone. And Rhonda, although I'm happy that you can marry who you want to, what does this say about voting rights in knowing that California could be subject to some of the same kind of crazy shit where back in the day they used to hand out these ridiculous reading apprehension tests so that people would be considered eligible to vote.
We're not done. We're not done. We have a fight. We had to, like I said, even before all this happened, I said I needed to I had to put my blinders on, and I really had to focus on what was important. And right at that time, the only two things that were important that had to do with my life was Prop 8 because I live in California, and DOMA because my partner works under the Department of Transportation, which is federal. So I can't get benefits, and she can't get benefits. And right now I'm stuck at the VA, and nobody wants to be stuck at the VA. So that's what I had to focus on. Now, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. This voter right thing, I didn't forget about it. It just happened to happen in the couple of days. It was like I was pissed one day, and then the next day I was elated, right? So I couldn't switch. It was hard for me to celebrate at that time because I knew I still had work to do. And I started to see it within my own community. Like I'm looking at my own community, and they're thinking that, we're safe now. We don't have to have our, political hands in the air, and we don't have to put our hand in the soup no more and get this done. And I'm telling them, just like somebody had to fight for us to get DOMA and Prop 8 passed, now we have to all start fighting for this voter right thing because it's not fair to anybody. And they're going to use it against minorities. That was what the whole thing was about in the first place. So I have already started in our community of saying, look, you guys, it's time to make a U-turn. Okay, let's get through Pride. But then once we do, I'm going to make that U-turn and come back. And I'm also, Gary's not here, but I'm going to go on Gary's show and let him know that I'm going after the disability marriage equality because they lose their benefits if they get married. So,
that's right.
We have to take the victories, and then we have, we had a setback. It took a victory, and now I have to refocus, restructure where I'm going with this right now. We're good right now with the marriage equality.
We have to also remind ourselves that when something is done, as the hip-hops like to say, you don't stop, because we're never finished. There's, the the mindset of people thinking that everything was all right when President Obama got elected and they relaxed led to a lot of this chaos in the midterm elections when the teabaggers got in there and did damage like they did and are still doing to this point. You know, we should know that even though we know it's about individual battles and long-term skirmishes, ultimately, when we get something on the plus side, something else is being taken on the other side, and we don't remind ourselves that in our little victories, we know the game is going to get more sophisticated and things are going to change up. Unfortunately, there's no sophistication in what's here. This is just blatant out and out. We're going to pull your asses back to 1850 as quickly as possible. And if you didn't think you was going to be picking some cotton, you better think again. Now, I don't know about y'all, but my black ass is too old to even think about that. So they are daring us to have the collective jam to get up off our asses and fight back, in my humble. I don't know, Fred, how you feel about that?
Well, one of the things I often tell folks is, you know, black folks, you look at it on any given Sunday, Saturday, whatever you want to look at. Black folks we are given some of the greatest lessons in the world. And I'm a graduate of Winston-Salem State. Reggie went to Virginia State. You know, on any given Saturday, you know, we're out there. We see this lesson. You know, football camp starts in about a month.
Yep.
For colleges. But, you know, even now, before football camp starts, these guys better have their behinds out there getting in, as they say, and get in shape to gotten into real shape for playing. Because it's a continual situation.
Sure.
You know, the biggest problem, the biggest problem with your freshman year and then the year of the freshman behind you is freshmen were not used to the level of conditioning you need to come in with. Right. You didn't go in the second year the way you went in the first year because you figured, hey, first year I'm new, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
You know, and I'm in pretty decent shape until the whistle blew. And about 10 minutes in, you start thinking, these jokers are out of their friggin' mind. you know, because in high school you do 2 a days, college you do 3 for the first few days, and then you take it a step further. You got to go take these hard behind classes and still get in shape. Then you go on Sunday, you go on Saturday, game day, right?
Yep.
Now, when you score the first touchdown, is the game over? No.
Nope.
You're not even, hopefully you're not even out of the first quarter when you score your first touchdown. You go out, you regroup, you get ready, and you take the offense again. We, on the other hand, I would even accept that we assume a defensive posture. No, we go sit in the stands and start kissing girls and whatever. Because, and see, as much as I love a lot of the stuff that Tom Joyner does, one of the things that irks me about his situation is everything is relegated to a party.
That's
the
right.
Same people who won't give him $100 for his foundation will give him $2,000 or $3,000 to go on
a boat,
carnival ship.
That's right.
Or that kind of stuff. Where a large portion of the money goes to them white folks.
There you
so
go.
You paying them because have you ever seen a carnival commercial on anything relative to black colleges other than his show?
Thank you.
Or other than his event?
Never.
And see, we go and see beyond that, we go out on cruises big time, whether it's with Tom Joyner or not. And I say the real downside is Carnival. From what I can tell, beyond what they do for Tom Joyner, could give a rat's ass about HBCUs.
That's right.
I'm happy for what little they do for him, and I'm happy for what he does with what he's. Like I said, I applaud most of his efforts because without them, I've known kids who got scholarships from him. I know my alma mater got a lot of money out of him. I know he's done 2 major events that we know the works. But at the same time, though, we some time ago, I heard somebody say this: niggas play too much.
That's right.
I know a good friend of mine says that a lot. He grew up in the Durham area, and he talks about how he was one of the first one I ever heard use an analogy. When I was growing up, we didn't need white folk. We could take you from the cradle at the top of the hill to the grave at the bottom of the hill, get you educated from first grade through your master's degree, and during his own schooling time, you could actually go and get your law degree from right there on campus on that side on Austin Avenue. But we as a people are willing to give more money to play than we are to be serious.
Yeah.
And I know that for a fact from even what I'm doing with the Hall of Fame situation. I got people. Why you want to sell books to do that? Well, you got to do both things because see how much. If you buy a book, what do? You're not only getting the story, you're contributing to the furtherance of the story.
That's
versus
right.
Giving money to UNCF, Man is a Terrible Thing to Waste. They trot out the same group of Negroes every year. Thurgood Marshall, the same thing. Well, there's a Thurgood Marshall Fund. Yeah. Well, who they give to? And see, when you as a black person, especially an HBCU graduate, have to ask those questions and don't know the answer to them, it's little wonder our schools are in the shape they're in. It's little wonder so many other facets of our community are in the shape they're in. Because I had this brother, well-placed, elected official brother, who did not know that there was an actual Thurgood Marshall Fund, and it's the one that gives to HBCUs that are state-supported. And I hated. I made him look as bad as he did in the situation because, me and this brother pretty cool.
Yeah.
But he would, and we got a people, both Rhonda and Gary in Reggie said, talk about this holding folks accountable. Well, we don't. And unfortunately, when we don't, we get people in a place like this. Well, he's so busy. Busy doing what? Because at some point in time, we got to spend more time educating ourselves than we do playing.
Exactly.
You're not going to be you're not Tiger Woods, so your golf only needs to be so good. Because I don't play golf, but from the conversation I've had with people who do, it's about the business deal. And most time, if you lose real good,
that's right.
You get the deal anyway. So you don't want to be great. And like I said, you got too many people out there in high places. You can't hold accountable because you don't have access to them. Nope. You don't have access. They move up and out of your community because I was I had a very good situation over last night because the young lady who I was actually in school with brought me some pictures from my high school because she was one of the graduates. She brought some books. A book that I could get some pictures out of, and and she gave me some information, and we were kicking off the fundraiser thing last night. And I said it was a beautiful situation because I was juggling with because she was a senior, I was in the 8th grade, so which means I was across campus from her. But I said she was elated that I was actually doing something, including our high school, which has been closed now for 43 years, and but I think about it. You Google my high school that I went to before I came to Fayetteville, and you Google it and you find tidbits of information, mostly in obituaries, where so-and-so attended Bladen Central High School. But you Google the Crackers Nest I went to here in Fayetteville for just 1 year, you find out that the mayor went there, the sheriff went there. And I thought that was the most backward bunch of crackers I'd ever met in my life, and I still do. But
it's a microcosm.
They have found ways to get their story out. So when you talk about them, you talk about all the elected officials they produce.
Exactly. No, it goes to what you've been saying all along about we need to tell our own stories. It's a microcosm of accountability. We don't have folks thinking in this big picture manner, and because of that, they'll spend $2,000 on the Joyner cruise, but they won't take $500 of that money. And since you spent $2,000, you already proved that you got the money for it. You spend $500 of that money to contribute to something, whether it's a scholarship fund, whether it's a black business. That money doesn't get spent like that because everybody's too busy playing. You know, Rhonda, you do promotions and you're in businesses where people are out there thinking along lines of pursuing things that will benefit, even if it's for the purpose of entertaining, you know, gays and life out there on the West Coast in San Jose. What have you run into that's the same kind of cold reminder that Fred just brought up regarding this type of stuff?
As a promoter, it's well, in regards to what Fred is saying, we don't support ourselves. I could throw a specialized party, and we won't support it. You know, everybody else will come, but we won't. And it goes back to something else Fred said earlier with the Willie Lynch thing. I mean, economically, it'll be harder for us to achieve, especially in a city like San Jose, where you have 2% of the population here of 1.5 million people is African American. So then you have a very select, and then mine is very specialized. So you have to think about it in those terms. And then in that term, we have our own little, you can't really hang out with blacks because there's too many blacks, and that's like a conspiracy gang thing, even if you're in the LGBT community here. I mean, there's just so many things that they have broken us down, so many different categories that they have broken us down to separate us in this city. It's almost been incredible. So economically, it's a little bit difficult for us to run, say, like a black club or do promotions. It's hard for me to get advertisements for my magazine, to get people to buy into a lifestyle that I live, and that's the surfing life. That black people surf? I can't even get you to buy a T-shirt. You know, they'll buy it. You know, they walk around with, you know, Hurley shirts on, not knowing that Hurley's owned by Nike. They'll walk around with Converse on, not knowing that that Nike owns Converse. You know, it's just you don't get it. You don't understand that we can't, as a people, we have economic buying power, but if we don't start liking each other as people, as our own people, and not being embarrassed or feel bad about who we are as a people. You know, all black, they're going to think just because we're wearing something black that we're this category. No, sometimes it don't have to be like that. Sometimes you just do it because you want to help that person go up. You haven't seen a business like that, that's the way you want to do it. But we have to figure out in our mind how to change our own mindset of, because out here, if you're talking about slave mentality, we're down in the South, but they sure do act like it in San Jose.
That mentality spreads cross country.
Yeah,
ironically, with your Inkwell brand, nobody would know unless they saw it. It's like if you saw the shirt, like the shirt, it's an Inkwell shirt. Yeah, I'll buy it. You know, they don't know that Inkwell would be a black brand unless they saw proof somewhere that it was. That's the issue.
That is the funniest thing. I was in a club. When I designed a whole bunch of Hawaiian shirts, right? That was about 4 years ago. I'm in a club. I see one of my shirts walk by. I was like, oh, that's interesting. There goes one of my shirts. And then another one of my shirts. And I'm like, dang, that's kind of odd. 3 shirts in one club. Had no idea that the people that owned the shirt, that created the shirt. So I walked up because they all looked like PE teachers, and I swear to God I didn't design it. It was a men's shirt, but I swear to God they were all PE teachers. I walked up to her and I said, can I see your tag on your shirt? And I looked, and there it was. It was Inkwell. And I said, do you know where that comes from? Do you know where it is? She says, no, but, it was my size. It fits. The fabric's nice. And I said, I'm the designer behind that. And the look on her face was like, a black girl? And I said, look at the logo. If you look at the logo, it's a tiny little black surfer. And she just tripped out. She just tripped out. But it's true. Like, you have to, prove it to them that it is a black label. And it's sad, too. Like, black people don't go to Hawaii. We wear the most. I got the Hawaiian shirt thing from my father.
I know.
That's what he used to wear.
I have shirts as well. So does Cowboy Reggie, apparently. As Cowboy gets thrown back into the mix and whatnot, he's probably got his Hawaiian shirt on as we speak. But Cowboy, we've talked about this whole thing of voting rights, defense of marriage. Gays have the right to see now, marry, love who they want, and all the other good stuff that goes with it. But we really haven't discussed the actual result, because that 5-4 decision, looking at those numbers, is ominous for years to come, because we know, as the dissenting opinions were given by people like Ruth Ginsburg, when you see Clarence Thomas sitting there, you know, it's like the undisputed truth is playing smiling faces sometimes, screaming in my head as I see this low-life motherfucker who, however they want to say it, he took advantage and was given every advantage. He went to school through affirmative action. He got bumped up and said, and not to say that he didn't do his own work to get where he had to get, but in the face of everybody else, he's going to tell everyone, y'all don't need this. And I revel in the fact that I can punish as many of you black motherfuckers as possible because I sit on the court and now I'm the head nigga in charge to tell you that your voting rights aren't necessary. You don't need the vote. I mean, aren't we literally saying this? Because we've been saying this since corporations were considered people.
But, Mike, see, the bottom line is that don't get mad at them because the late Judge Hickenbottom was the one that everybody was pushing instead of Clarence Thomas. But, again, we stand on the background and don't get involved. So I'm not mad at the gays. I'm not mad at the Republican Party, what they do, you know, because what they do. You know, I ain't mad at them at all.
Well, I'm not mad at them either. But I'm looking at Clarence Thomas and saying, how the fuck could you even condone the court rolling in this direction when maybe some of your relatives had to take some of those literacy tests that they had, you know, in parts of the South, where what's the old story about black man is handed a Chinese newspaper and at the polling place, and they're asking them to pass the test by reading the paper, and the black man says, well, you know, I can't make out most of this, but I can read the headline. So the cracker's looking at him like, what the fuck are you talking about? This shit's Chinese.
Oh, yeah.
What does it say? And the black man says, oh, black man denied vote again. That's what it says. You know, because they know what time it is.
Yeah.
And we see this attitude manifest itself when somebody like a Clarence Thomas would sit there and allow Scalia and the rest of his ilk to run with this and punish all Americans, because this is going to affect all the states. It's not just the same ones that had to be watched because people were getting lynched, because night riders were coming in and destroying polling places or intimidating people to not come to vote, or, again, handing these stupid literacy tests out.
But, Mike, again, man, the bottom line is this. When you don't get involved, this is what happens.
Well, you know, to piggyback on what Ray is saying, let's say I've lived part of that. But then you have to also look at the fact that, again, black folks play too much. We sit up and watch these ball games. You know, you score, you put your defense on, and you go back on the offense. You score, do a little special team stuff, you play a little defense, get back on offense. And you know, and we don't learn from the fact that we want the offense to be on the floor or on the court or on the field more than the defense, because it's hard to score on defense. It's not impossible, but it's hard.
That's right.
And what we want is we want the defense to protect us while our offense rests, but then in their resting, we need to be getting ready for the next. We need to go out and take ground. You don't take ground with defense. You know,
right.
I'm watching a documentary on World War I and World War II. And, you know, remember the French did this whole Maginot Line thing?
Yep.
A defensive situation. What did the Germans do? They went north, swung west, came around that bad boy, and the next thing you know, all these little French boys come running out of there with their hands up because they've been surrounded and were starving to death.
That's right.
You cannot score effectively on defense. Is it impossible? No. Is it practical? Yes.
Yes.
And we look at the average defense, especially in football, and it's mostly bad people. And we can play it. We play it well. We can do all the techniques. And like we master it. That's like anything. If you tell us we can't do it, especially, we're gonna find a way to do it because that's just how we are. So why don't we program in more quarterbacks, more receivers, more runners, tight ends, and offensive line? Because you know we We have mastered every probable position there is in football, except kicker.
Yeah.
And we work on, and somewhere some black kids working on that, so we can give them time.
That's right.
But my point is, we have mastered those things when it comes to something as mundane and marginal as football. We've even mastered in basketball because your best players in basketball not only can play offense, they can play defense. Because you got to. You don't sub. You don't sub on the way down the court.
That's right.
Offense and defense. So you got to play both ways. So if we can do that in these sports, why is it we can't do that in politics? Why can we do that in business? Why can't we do that in just day-to-day life? And see, you can't do with so much of that as sociology majors, as criminal justice majors. One thing I'm gonna do this weekend is go over document on real estate investment. Why? Right. Because it's necessary for what I need. And yes, it's overdue because I've done some of it before. But see, we got to be proactive with this because if we don't, we end up behind the eight ball again in some other place where some marginal, some semi-infected white boy gonna come up with something that if I'm not careful, he'll take my money, put me behind the eight ball, and the first thing will be out of his mouth, well, you had your chance. That's right. Because we as a people have to be. We got to get better from top to bottom. We got to get some of our church folks off their behind because God helps those who are helping themselves much more so He helped those sitting up there whining and crying about woe is me. Because even his own people, it took him 400 years of wailing and crying before he went and got their behind. So, take a hint.
Rhonda left before I got a chance to ask her the question. But, Rhonda, if you're listening, you pop back in. The question I want to throw at you is, now that Defense of Marriage has been shot down and Prop 8 has been shot down, is this all? Can gay couples anywhere in this country marry, without drama, and are free to do what all others do who pay taxes in this country and, have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? So, Rhonda, if you pop back in there, that's something I need to throw into the pot for you. But, Fred, before we move on to the next topic, where you are in North Carolina, you may see more effect of it in your neck of the woods than I might see it in New York or elsewhere across this country. Are you of the same mind that this is going to be even more dangerous now because other states will pick up on things that are done in states like Texas, where Texas already changed the voting laws, and they're expediting not just gerrymandering, but making it even more difficult to vote, period. Never mind the redistricting of voters and stuff like that. Are the states going to look at what Texas is doing and say, we can do the exact same thing because we want to make sure we hold on to what we got?
Well, here in the great state, Tar Heel state of North Carolina, most of that has practically already been done. The Republicans are so entrenched in North Carolina. The voting of Democrats on both the House and the Senate, and along with a sitting Republican governor who is of the same ilk as the House and Senate, he is a borderline rubber stamp governor because he tells you up front, I'm with them with what they do. And see, this man is, and mind you now, say what you please, this man was partially elected by, was in great part elected by black folks, because black folks in Charlotte revere him. Now, some of the stuff he espoused they're against, but again, they won't say anything because we did just get a young man who was the governor of Charlotte, or the mayor of Charlotte, who's now in the cabinet, Mr. Fox. And see, he and Mr. Fox were kind of in there with each other. He supported, in a roundabout way, he supported Mr. Fox for mayor, and now Mr. Fox has, moved on, and they got unfortunately, there's two Omegas running for to replace Mr. Fox as mayor of Charlotte. But either way, you still got these people are ruthless. Remember, that was the first law. Texas had the first law changed by tweet.
That's right.
Our governor is, because of the system, slightly, the law has not totally passed and so forth, but still, we're in for it in North Carolina, and to a point that if we're not careful, we're going to end up behind the eight ball big time, because these people have already espoused this kind of stuff, so it's a short trip. Now they know that the game has shifted totally. It's a short trip to get from where we are, which is not quite that bad, to where they want us to be, which is going to be really that bad. And these are the people who want less government, so they're closing places where you can even get government ID and the kind of ID they say you're going to have.
That's right.
In some cases, it's not even practical, because you got to go 30, 40 miles just to get to the closest institution that you can get them from.
More than that, Fred, they've seen that in addition to the gerrymandering process, they have taken where areas or districts where there are more white voters have more places to go, to your point.
True.
And areas where there are more black people have fewer places and a hell of a lot farther to go. So they can technically say, well, we're not trying to impede the process because those polling places exist. Now, if you want to get up off your ass and drive the 90 miles to get to the place and wait online with the thousands of others as opposed to a few dozen in the white polling places, that's another story. And
plus, our numbers say, our U.S. Census numbers say there's not that many people here, so it's not enough of you all in this area to have a cost-effective licensing center or place that you can get a state ID. So screw you.
Yeah. Before you get any further on this, Fred, and I want to do this before we get the final thoughts, because I want everybody out there in Soul Tree Nation to understand the depth of what we're going at here. What I'm going to do right now is read you the literacy test that was given to anyone who cannot prove a fifth-grade education in the state of Louisiana. Now, if you don't pass this test, you can't vote. Now, some of this stuff you'll have to use your mind for, because obviously you don't see the paper in front of you. But think about the level of indignity that this is heaped upon to American citizens of any stripe when you hear some of these lines. I'm going to read it to its completion, so y'all got to bear with me and whatnot, but I want you to understand, decades ago, they were forcing people to do this, and they were using this in a purposeful manner to try to stop people from voting. All right. Literacy test. This test is to be given to anyone who cannot provide or prove a fifth-grade education. Do what you are told to do in each statement, nothing more, nothing less. Be careful, as one wrong answer denotes failure of the test. You have 10 minutes to complete the test. 1. Draw a line around the number or letter of this sentence. 2. Draw a line under the last word in this line. 3. Cross out the longest word in this line. 4. Draw a line around the shortest word in this line. 5. Circle the first letter of the alphabet in this line. 6. In the space below, draw 3 circles, one inside engulfed by the other. 7. Above the letter X, make a small cross. 8. Draw a line through the letter below that comes earliest in the alphabet. Z, V, S, B, D, M, K, I, T, P, H, C. 9. Draw a line through the first 2 letters below that come last in the alphabet. Z, V, B, D, M, K, T, P, H, S, Y, C. 10. In the first circle below, write the last letter of the first word beginning with L. and there are 5 circles, 5 numbers. 11. Cross out the number necessary when making the number below 1 million. And I have a 1 in front of me with 10 zeros behind it. 12. Draw a line from circle 2 to circle 5 that will pass below circle 2 and above circle 4. 13. In the line below, cross out each number that is more than 20 but less than 20. 31, 16, 48, 29, 53, 47, 22, 37, 98, 26, 20, 25. 14. Draw a line under the first letter after H and draw a line through the second letter after J. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q. 15. In the space below, write the word noise backwards and place a dot over what would be its second letter should have been written forward. 16. Draw a triangle with a blackened circle that overlaps only its left corner. 17. Look at the line of numbers below and place on the blank the number that should come next. 2, 4, 8, 16 blank. 18. Look at the line of numbers below and place on the blank the number that should come next. 3, 6, 9 blank 15. 19. Draw in the space below a square with a triangle in it, and within that same triangle, draw a circle with a black dot in it. 20. Spell backwards, forwards. 21. Print the word vote upside down but in the correct order. 22. Place a cross over the 10th letter in this line, a line under the first space in this sentence, and the last line in the second line of this sentence. Unfucking believable. 23. Draw a figure that is square in shape. Divide it by half by drawing a straight line from its northeast corner to its southwest corner, and then divide it once more by drawing a broken line from the middle of its western side to the middle of its eastern side. 24. Print a word that looks the same whether it's printed frontwards or backwards, a palindrome. 25. Write on the line provided what you read in the triangle below. Triangle says Paris in the spring. 26. In the third square below, write the second letter of the fourth word. 27. Write from the left to the right as you see it spelled here. 28. Divide a vertical line in 2 parts by bisecting it with a curved horizontal line that is only straight at its spot bisection of the vertical. 29. Write every other word in this first line and print every third word in the same line, original type smaller, and first line ended at comma, but capitalize the fifth word that you write. 30. Draw 5 circles that have one common interlocking part. Now, Fred, I don't know about you, but I'd be mad as hell. First of all, the premise of having to do something like this, but you've seen this firsthand. This is stuff that they handed in front of people for the express purpose of stopping them from enacting their right to vote.
Well, Mike, it goes deeper than that. Remember, you said that was Louisiana?
Yep, that's Louisiana.
Okay, now you do remember that across most of the South until well into the 20s, or basic schooling in most areas only to the 5th or 6th or 7th grade.
Mm-hmm.
If you lived in a rural area, for boys especially around that time, you started doing farm work.
That's right.
Most of the year. You went to school on days at Green.
Mm-hmm.
Willie Davis, who we know as the All-Pro and All-American out of Grambling, talked about how glad he was at Green on Fridays so he could go to school, so he could play ball on Friday night, because you had to go to school that day to play that night.
Sure.
And see, remember now, we're talking Louisiana, which was somewhat better, and it was somewhat better than Mississippi when it came to education, but not much.
Yep.
And when you look at all the various things that were done to keep blacks from being educated, and poor whites, to be frank about it, because when you go cross past D.C. back then, you went from industrial down to a rural agrarian farm type area, So, you need backs out there to pick that cotton, to chop it, and do the tobacco, whatever else, farm work, why? Or even to, they call it the timber industries. That was very labor intense. So you didn't need no smart people. You need people who were willing to work hard all day, cake to cake, and all that kind of stuff. And so when it came to the vote, everything is in place to program you so that you can't pass. Those questions really have no answers. So invariably, anything you say, you're going to flunk. And as you say, one wrong answer means you automatically flunk. I had a professor who went down in the late 50s, early 60s, when he was working at Harvard. They went down in the South, several places in the South, and they were given literacy tests. And come to find out, in one or two instances from the team that he was with, the people who were sitting behind the table could not read. So you get into this thing of irrefutable evidence. If they say you can't read, you can't refute what they say because they're the ones that's right.
That's
you
right.
Have no, and see, if they say you can't, if they say the answer you get is wrong, unless they can't refute what you say, which anything you say, they're gonna say you're wrong. So there's no such thing as irrefutable evidence. So invariably you flunk.
That's
and
right.
see, these are the kinds of things that we have faced as a people over the years. These are the kind of things that were used to keep us from voting when it was well within our rights. And see, and most people don't know this, but realistically, when you register to vote, most people don't know that you don't register to vote for the president because you don't have to.
That's right.
But, because, when I was a registrar, among the things that I did, from time to time we'd have soldiers come in who want to vote for the president. Well, you're not registered. No, they ain't got nothing to do with top price. That's a national election. You got military ID? Yes. Hey, here's your military. Here's your presidential ballot.
Mm-hmm.
But see, that's one of the more intellectual sounding literacy tests. Again, we're back. There's a lot of words that sound very cute, but realistically add up to nothing.
That's exactly right.
We've all heard about how many bubbles in a bar of soap,
how
far can a dog run in the woods, how many gallons of water is in this bucket?
Mm-hmm.
What size is the bucket?
But that's the heinous part about it, brother. I hang on to that because I wanted to get Rhonda back in on this and whatnot, and Rhonda's back in. Rhonda, I asked the question before you ran out of juice regarding the results of the Supremes. Does this finally solidify and stabilize marriage for gays in every state of this country, or are there still state battles that have to be won in spite of the Supreme Court rulings?
Oh no, it's definitely. We still got more to work to do. With the part of DOMA that they voted on was the part that said the states that now have okayed same-sex marriage. Now those states will get federal benefits. But if you go to like Washington State where they don't, not Washington State, but another state like Kansas, you go to Kansas and they don't have it, there's where the challenge comes in. If you move somewhere that's out of those states, is your marriage going to be valid state to state? And that's the new fight. So the thing that the real meat and potatoes is to strike down DOMA altogether, or have them vote across the board to legalize same-sex marriage altogether, and then then we can go from there. But right now, you've got 37 more states to work on.
Yeah. No, I agree wholeheartedly, and unfortunately, the sad part about all this is scaring me that we have to be subjected to this, knowing that, this is just one round in a continuing fight, and people need to understand that. Fred, I didn't mean to cut off because I had to get Ron in before the time frame, but go back to where you were talking about, because, as you said, Louisiana's literacy test was one of the more sophisticated ones, and everybody needs to know just how far this went. So please tell them what the deal was with some of the others, like counting the bubbles in the bar of soap and stuff.
Oh, there how many feathers on a chicken? And see, everything is vague in nature. So invariably, anything you say, if you're black, you're wrong. If you're white, anything you say is correct. And it gets into this whole realm of what's called irrefutable evidence, or your answer has to be irrefutable. And it's just like some of the people who are apologists for and say that the Holocaust never happened. And they tell you, well,
Good show today, Mike. I was in and out, man. Good job.
I got you, Reggie. Hang on. You're on the air. Hold on, Freddie. I'm sorry. I got you, Reggie. I was bringing Cowboy Reggie back into this. Cowboy, you're on the line here as well. Fred, go ahead, please.
And see, you get into this whole thing of, can what you say be refuted, or is it irrefutable? Well, I can say anything. I can refute anything you say.
Mm-hmm.
It just, I don't have to substantiate the fact that I'm refuting what you say. I just say I don't agree with you. You have not proved to me beyond a reasonable doubt that this is how it is. And because of that, what you end up with is anything that I say, you're going to say, well, no, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like some of these stupid arguments you hear from the Tea Party about various positions they take.
Right.
Well, anything the president says, well, today is Saturday. Well, not necessarily it's not Saturday on the other side of the international date line. Well, that's true. But where we are, it's Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
But see, because they choose to object to anything he says, you keep going around these same stupid circles. And this is what was wrong with some of the literacy tests, because some of them just, I had people who argue with me about it, and Google literacy test, and they will go back, and then you see this look on their face, and they go like, I can't believe that a grown adult person with an education wrote something this dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Case in point, most of these were written by lawyers.
That's right.
And at any rate, there was the intent was to refuse you the right to vote, no matter what you said. So, because somebody made mention of the fact that among the damaging things that was done to black folks, is black folks got the perception that, Bubba and Bubette, they must be smart because they gave the right answer and they can read.
That's exactly right.
Bubba and Bubette went to the same 3rd or 4th grade you went to. They stopped and started working just like you did. Or if they even went to the 6th or 7th grade, they're no smarter than you. They just, anything they say is going to be right. Anything you say is going to be wrong. And that was problem. And see, therein lies the dig against the literacy test.
Mm-hmm. And as I read, before you even get started, there's the added understanding that if you get one wrong answer, you can't vote, boy. It reminds me of the Dick Gregory situation where he was in the restaurant and he was getting served chicken, and rednecks stroll up to him and they say, boy, anything you do to that chicken, we going to do to you. And he picked up the chicken and kissed it. Now, that allowed him to get out of a situation, but if they tell you there's no way around this and you have one wrong answer, it cancels everything out. Clearly, it was designed to obstruct. And
Mike,
I'm sorry.
In looking at this, remember, start with the instructions.
Mm-hmm.
The instructions don't even make sense.
That's right.
So invariably, where do you go once you have read the instructions? It's like an exam I had, and it basically said, do not look up, do not look around, sit here and read, just read through each page, put no answers on the page, and after 15 minutes, put your name on the paper and pass it up.
Exactly.
If there was one answer on the paper, you had flunked.
That's right. That's really
and that was all about
like.
following instructions. But the kind of, if you go back to the instructions given on that, it makes, first of all, it makes no sense to begin with. Thus, anything that follows that ain't going to make no sense either.
That's exactly. On that, we have to cut it off and go to our final thoughts. And Rhonda, since you're here, ladies first, Time for you to throw something in the pot. You have the floor for whatever you want, and throw in a shameless plug, if you would.
Well, my thought is I want to thank everybody that supported Prop 8 and DOMA, the striking down of both of those. I feel a little bit freer now that the foot is a little bit off my neck. We still have a lot of, work to do, but in the end, it's all worth it because we all deserve to be free. And I want to say that we need to make that U-turn and come back and start helping people with this voters' rights situation because it's all the fairest thing to do. My show is on 5 days a week now, One Love Radio. You can catch me here at Blog Talk. Add me on Facebook, but beware when you come on my Facebook page. Just know that whatever you hear and the words that I use on this show, I use them on my Facebook page. Then there's a disclaimer that she might cuss and she might cut up a little bit. It's okay. It's gonna be all right. They're just words. Mike, I want to thank you and your panel because you guys have always supported me since I've started this. You guys were supporting me when I was doing Black Serpent. So to see you guys still following me through each of these transitions that I've been going through and have that kind of support, especially by my community, my Black community, it's appreciated more than you'll ever know. And I love you. You guys are like my brothers. I'll be over at Gary's show because I'm going to help him start with his disability, marriage equality, and that's just what we're going to do. We're going to just keep fighting until there ain't no more fight left. One love to everybody. Thank you for having me, and stay Black.
Indeed. We love you, sis. Ain't nothing but fam.
Love you, too.
Cowboy?
Yes, sir.
All right, brother. Time for you to throw something in the pot. And before you even do that, we're going to give you props because one thing you've been consistent on, other than them fucking Cowboys, is the fact that you have been consistent in making sure everybody understands that local officials need to be held accountable. In the light of the damage that's been done in the Voting Rights Act, I'm fearful of the accountability or lack of that we're going to see by local state officials because, as Fred so accurately stated early on, there's a lot of folks who've been playing for the other side, and they have stealth agendas, and now it's not going to be so stealthy anymore because their whole cards got peeped with the actions, not just by the Supreme Court, but the immediate actions thereafter by several states in being aggressive with deviations to their own voting rights laws.
Well, Mike, I remember the old Jack Benny where you had Rochester. Rochester was, yes, boss. Mm-hmm. That was Clarence Thomas snickering and laughing when it came to the Voting Rights Act. Mm-hmm. And people are going to be mad what I'm about to say, but no offense, but under President Obama and the leadership of the Democrat Party.
Tell the truth. Come on.
Civil rights have been turned back. Affirmative action been turned back. And just because you passed the lead law for women, women should still get paid the same as men. But again, people want to get mad about the gays and everything. I'm not mad because when 1,000 come out, they come out 10, 20,000 strong and put them where their mouth is. Mm-hmm. And again, they have done the greatness of the Adam Clayton Powell, the Shirley Chisholm, the family whose name was back in the day, who were beaten and put their lives on the line. And if they look back and see where we are now, they say, we got beat for this. So, yeah. I mean, we have Twitter, we have Facebook. Matter of fact, you have a young lady in Texas right now that's giving the Texas governor a fit. Why? Because social media brought the issue to the forefront.
Wendy Davis, state senator.
So I say again that black folks, our forefathers have planted seeds, but guess what? Those seeds have been cultivated. Now, to quote Joe Madison, what are we going to do? Mm-hmm. And a lot of us out here are trying to fight, but guess what? The young people are going to get their act together. They're going to move forward. Mm-hmm. And I mean, leaving us behind, that's what? That's life. Peace and blessing, my man, Dr. Witt. Get a chance. Holler at me this weekend. We need to talk to you about the Virginia State situation where we lost a coach. Why? Because the bottom line, football rules, Virginia State, and basketball is the stepchild. I'll talk to y'all about that off the air.
Give me a show thingy here. Give me a show plug.
Sports Talk 1450 WSN Radio every Saturday from 12 to 1 at www.wsnradio.com. Take care, gentlemen.
All right. Professor, you did some good work as always today, sir. Throw something in the pot. Give me a shameless plug.
Well, just so Reggie knows is that Winston-Salem State won national championships in football, basketball, and track and field. So we'll talk about that battling off there. Yeah. But on the real tip, last night I was able to kick off. I got my first contribution to the HBCU Heritage Hall of Fame Museum from a beautiful lady who, like I mentioned earlier, she was actually 4 years ahead of me in school, but she bought the first copy of the Black College Sports Encyclopedia and kicked it off. So Bulldog Power still is out there, and even though the school is closed now 43 years. And we're going to make this happen. We got to have a place to tell the story of HBCUs, and that's what this is all about. We got the Black College Sports Encyclopedia, as well as the Black College Alumni American Role Models. First book of the series is complete. You can place your orders now at www.blackheritagereview.com, and we know now that all the buttons work. Also, on that same website, you can order the Black Conference, which is the history of the all Black high schools in North Carolina. That book will be released in 3 weeks from Tuesday. 4 weeks from Tuesday.
All right. That's www.blackheritagereview, the Black College Sports Encyclopedia. Professor, as always, excellent stuff. Before I carry on, and we're trying to shake the gremlins out here, shameless plug, 2 shameless plugs. We're going to do our last music show of June and Black Music Month. Bobby Blue Bland passed away a few days ago, Lion of the Blues at age 83. We had a format designed for this Sunday show, but we're changing it up. We are going to recognize the blues masters. It's going to be giving respect to the blues. So it's going to be a blues session, Blues Power, Sunday evening, 9 to 11, right here on Blog Talk Radio. We do our last music show for the Soul Tree. It'll be a beggars banquet, all about the blues. And as another shameless plug, I again want to thank the staff of the Anthony Johnson Show and Anthony Johnson for gracing me with time to talk about my book, Imitation in Life. You can find it on Amazon.com, and it will be available on Kindle as well by Monday. As I said, it takes 48 hours for the Kindle files to download properly, but it is there. I hope you all find it informative. It is discussing politics, music, many of the same subjects that we go through here, but it ties in pop culture by using movies and their quotes as the punchlines to the various issues that we discuss. So I hope you all check it out. It's Imitation and Life. You can find it on Amazon.com, and the Soul Tree staff will be lining up and getting them, I hope, as well. For my final thought, I just want to throw in something to cool us off on these hot days here. Now, the National Hockey League is going to have its draft tomorrow, and we didn't get a chance to talk this, but we will be speaking on this on the Gray Leopard Cove. It is a strong possibility that the first player drafted in the National Hockey League draft will be a young black man who wasn't born in Canada and who wasn't in an atmosphere where hockey was encouraged. His name is Seth Jones, and he is the son of former NBA power forward Popeye Jones. He took a love of the game early on and was mentored to some degree by the great Joe Sakic, the Colorado Avalanche in their hometown where they were, and Sakic responsible for helping the Avalanche win a Stanley Cup. Seth Jones is 6'4", 205 pounds, and from all accounts has the kind of stuff to make him a potential NHL star. But we know, although we knew black people always played hockey because they live in Canada and elsewhere where it's cold, the bottom line is no one would think about black people doing damage and elevating to be such levels in a sport like hockey because of the fact that, well, people don't think about blacks and hockey in the same manner. Now, in addition to that, there's another kid named Darnell Nurse, who is also a highly regarded talent, and he will likely hear his name called sometime within the first 6 to 8 picks. His father was a former CFL, Canadian Football League player, and his mother was also an athlete. And so he fits the mold of more of what they expected because he is Canadian in part. But he's also the nephew of Donovan McNabb. And given what kind of flack Donovan has been getting and giving in return, it'll be interesting to see what team picks up Darnell, who is also 6'4", 215 pounds, has a nice little mean streak, and again, looks like he has a possibility of being a solid NHL player as well. Now, I've always believed that black people can do everything, and I know my colleagues surely do. But I think sometimes when we see them in places where they're not supposed to be seen or not normally thought of as seen, it always makes people scratch their heads. Well, I've always felt that because in the history books, everything that black people has done has been suppressed to a great degree. We should know that Garrett Morgan, Granville Woods, and others made significant contributions to black society. And Granville Woods didn't run the 100-yard dash, and Mr. Morgan didn't throw more touchdowns than anybody in NFL history. They made practical contributions, sometimes contributions that spanned around the world. If you're riding a train, there's no way you would get on that train not knowing that, or should not know, that third rail system that generates that electricity was invented by Mr. Woods, who Thomas Edison tried to solicit the work for his company. And Granville said, thank you, but no thank you. The bottom line here is that when we look at things in that bigger picture, then you open the door for humanity. And once you make something human, you can no longer consider it or call it inhuman. Just a couple of things to pop in the pot and have them simmer till the next time we get to talk. Again, we have our music show tomorrow night, 9 to 11. Slide on over to the Great Upper Cove and indulge Brother Gray. We'll see you on the editorial tip next Wednesday for myself, for Professor Whitted, for Rhonda Harper, for Cowboy Reggie, for Gary Norris Gray, and all the rest of the staff on assignment. Kitchen's closed.